Kwaba, welcome back. If you're just now joining us, this episode is all about warrior queens and women who have led resistance movements. Having inspired Wakanda's elite warrior women, Dora Milaje, the Dahomey Amazons were a female military regiment of the Kingdom of Dahomey. The West African Kingdom, lasting from 1625 to 1894, has its remnants in the modern-day country of Benin. While these women were a powerhouse of influence throughout the kingdom, they were also regular people who were respected and were cultural and political leaders in their communities. Nevertheless, the Dahomey Amazons were beyond fierce, with their victims actually believing that they were indifferent to pain as they ferociously defended the kingdom. Known for their fearlessness and strength, at their zenith, this elite group of warrior sisters numbered up to 6,000 and fought nobly when the French invaded the Kingdom of Dahomey in 1892. Though eventually outnumbered, outgunned, and virtually wiped out by French invaders and colonialists, French soldiers noted that these warrior women had, and I quote, incredible courage and audacity, end quote. Audacity, a black woman's attitude for sure. One of the overlooked legacies of the Dahomey Amazons is the idea of gender equality, a concept that Europeans would have you believe is a modern one. In fact, gender equality can be witnessed not only through matrilineal lines of royal succession, but also in economies, as women controlled marketplaces in many African societies. Proving that suppression of women's rights is not a modern phenomenon taking place in Arab countries, the conquering French outlawed female education and political activity. Imagine that. Women in the throes of enslavement also led resistant movements on ship and on land. Dr. Rebecca Hall notes in her book, Wake, The Hidden History of Woman-Led Slave Revolts, that slave ships with a high percentage of women were more likely to have a rebellion, with the women willing and able to take and wield weapons, many of them trained in the arts of war. A history truly hidden, but coming to the light. One such woman was Queen Nanny, a serious woman warrior who led the Maroons of Jamaica. The Maroons were previously enslaved Africans, self-liberated and determined to fight the British for freedom from domination. Born in 1685, Nanny was brutally kidnapped from Ghana and thrust into enslavement in Jamaica. She escaped to the Blue Mountains, where other self-liberated Africans hid and created community amongst themselves. With demonstrated leadership ability and military skill, Nanny became the leader of the Maroons and began training the community in tactical guerrilla warfare in 1720. Like Nzinga and Amanirenas, she led successful raids, surprising the British and diminishing them, despite them being heavily armed. Like Harriet Tubman, she freed upwards of 800 enslaved captives, much to the vexation of slave owners. The Maroons, under Queen Nanny's leadership, were so fierce and dangerous to life and limb of the British, they conceded, signing a peace treaty guaranteeing the freedom of the Maroons in 1740. Queen Nanny was declared a national heroine with the title of Right Excellent for her strength and courage by the Jamaican government in 1975. Her image appears on the $500 monetary note. Speaking of the arts of war, in Bermuda, fear of being poisoned was pervasive, and whites were frantically searching for a ringleader. They believed they found one in Sarah Sally Bassett. Bassett was arrested, charged, tried, and executed for poisoning the slave owners of her granddaughter, Beck, among others. Though she maintained her innocence, Bassett's execution by burning was witnessed by hundreds of onlookers in June 1730. Today, the tragic but defiant life of Sally Bassett is remembered by the statue depicting her tied at the stake, eyes lifted towards the heavens on the grounds of the cabinet in Hamilton. During the enslavement era in the United States, Harriet Tubman emerged as another courageous woman determined to strike a blow for freedom. Born in 1822, Tubman established herself as an extraordinary conductor of the Underground Railroad, assisting upwards of 300 enslaved Africans to freedom. The Underground Railroad was a secret and elaborate series of safe houses, churches, and other sites created by white and black people who were against slavery. They risked everything to help enslaved Africans escape the horrors of slavery. Queen Harriet Tubman distinguished herself bravely, traveling back and forth on foot to rescue enslaved men, women, and children, never losing a passenger on what was a very dangerous journey. During the U.S. Civil War, she again demonstrated her bravery and fearlessness, becoming an armed scout and spy for the Union Army. Like Ya Asantewaa, she was the first woman to lead armed men on a military expedition in the United States at Cambrai Ferry. She liberated over 700 enslaved captives on that mission. Certainly, the fierceness of all of the warrior women were made manifest in the Saga of Ya Asantewaa, born in 1840. The Ashanti Wars were fought against British colonialism for a century, from 1800 to 1900. The British had taken over the neighboring Fanti and were determined to conquer the Ashanti using the tactics of divide and conquer. Under the pretense of protecting the Fanti, the British captured the Ashanti king and sent him and his royal court into exile. Then, with the arrogance of white supremacy, the British demanded the Ashanti sacred symbol, the golden stool, the seat of power. Ya Asantewaa was not having it and defiantly admonished the men, telling them without hesitation that we, the women, will fight the white man to the death. Appointed war leader of the Ashanti, the first woman in Ashanti history, Ya Asantewaa fought fiercely, preserving the sanctity and ownership of the golden stool. Thinking ahead, she had a fake stool created, and when she was captured, gave the British the fake stool, and they were none the wiser. She and her advisors were sent into exile in 1900. Although she died in exile, and her dream of a free Ashanti was realized when Ghana became the first African nation to achieve independence from British domination in 1957. For her bravery and fearlessness, Ya Asantewaa is revered in Ghana today. In Brazil, like the rest of the diaspora, African women had key roles, even if it has been hidden in the pages of history. Like the Maroons of Jamaica, The Quilombos of Brazil were communities of formerly enslaved African people who escaped in numbers sufficient to live outside of the slavocracy, though they were in constant struggle with the enslavers. Though there were a number of women who were Quilombo leaders, the saga of Teresa D Belaga is quite compelling. Bengala was a fugitive of the slavocracy and became queen of the coterie, Colombo. She ruled all aspects of the community, creating defense strategies, conducting trade missions for food and weapons, and absorbed upwards of 200 self-liberated, formerly enslaved Africans within the coterie Colombo community. Teresa D Belaga married within the community and ruled with her husband as chancellor for 20 years, beginning in 1750. On a fateful day in 1770, the coterie Colombo was overcome with a massive attack, decimating the community. Scores were killed, wounded, or captured and returned to enslavement. Queen Teresa de Bengala was captured and suffered public exposure, torture, and humiliation until her death. Then she was decapitated and her head placed on a pole in the city square to deter others. But it did not deter people yearning to be free of violent oppression, and enslaved Africans continued to escape and create Colombo communities. Queen Teresa de Belaga became a model of what it means to resist, organize, struggle, and even die for freedom. In 2014, with the activist work of Black Brazilian women, the National Day of Teresa de Bengala was instituted as a tribute to this powerful, fearless warrior woman. We'll be right back.